How you guys doing? Welcome back into Rover Sports. I'm really glad that that some of you guys got to enjoy the videos from yesterday's training camp session. And yeah, it's weird when you're doing this, kind of side view camera. It's hard to even see, where you're supposed to look. But I wanted to talk about one of the biggest scandals in all of college football, and that is this Zach Smith situation at Ohio State. The thing about Urban Meyer now is that Shelly Meyer, his wife, knew about the wide receiver coach at Ohio State, Zach Smith, and that he had been involved in abusing his wife since 2009, off and on, for around 7 years. Now, the father of Zach Smith is Urban Meyer's mentor. So Urban did not have the guts or the balls to fire Zach Smith and do the right thing. So even though this guy was a wide receiver coach, his dad was Urban Meyer's mentor. Now, Urban Meyer, I totally think that he knew about Zach Smith. He tried to push it under the rug for as long as he possibly could. Urban Meyer, he knows about every player. He knows about every player's personality. His wife, all the other coaches knew about Zach Smith. And I believe Urban knew about it. I believe he didn't do anything about it. The poor girl, Courtney Smith, has been getting abused for years and years, and Urban did nothing to punish this. He basically allowed this type of behavior, and there were no repercussions for Zach Smith at all. So it's looking like right now Urban Meyer is going to be fired by Ohio State. And if I were Ohio State, I would probably fire Urban Meyer as well, especially after the Baylor situation. Now, you could always compare Urban Meyer to a Joe Paterno, or you could compare him to a coach that actually did the offense. And I don't really like doing that because it minimalizes. Like when you start comparing, the coaches and Urban Meyer to each other, it minimalizes exactly his role, and it makes you seem like somehow like you're analyzing sexual assault, and that's just a real touchy area. But I expect Ohio State to probably fire Urban Meyer. So let's get now to a lighter subject, which is what is Ohio State going to do right now? So Ohio State, they had Jim Tressel. They were a decent program. Then Ohio State, I'm trying to think about what they did. So Urban Meyer then went to Ohio State. They then became an elite program. They made it to the college football playoff. They were on the verge of it last year. Urban Meyer, he won a national championship. He is the second best coach in college football. And last year he was not, but you look at his historical accomplishments of 3 championships, the level at which he recruited. Ohio State was certainly by far the best program in the Big Ten. But now you look at the Big Ten, and Wisconsin suddenly surges forward. Michigan is going to surge forward. There's going to be players that are going to transfer out of this program, and now Ohio State, they're going to have to really vet their next head coach. Their next head coach is going to have to be a stand-up guy, and they're still going to be successful, but they're not going to be the same success as Urban Meyer. So at Tennessee, they talked about Greg Schiano and about Greg Schiano taking over, but remembered it was rumored that Greg Schiano was involved in the Jerry Sandusky case because he was at Penn State. So suddenly all the national writers that insulted the volunteer fans, suddenly they're in a big pickle of hypocrisy because no one's out there right now banging the freaking table for Greg Schiano at Ohio State. And that just kind of makes me feel happy and validated for the Tennessee fans, because everybody else telling Tennessee how to act, all these Georgia fans, all these Florida fans, all of these mainstream media guys like Joe Klatt, like Dan Wolken, all these writers telling Tennessee fans to stop acting so spoiled and accept Greg Schiano, they're going to take a big fat L because they're not talking about Greg Schiano now at Ohio State whatsoever. So that really makes me very, very happy that the mainstream media can take a huge L and that they're a bunch of hypocrites that are just trying to sell their own stuff, and they're telling Tennessee fans how to act. And Greg Schiano hasn't been hired anywhere, so Greg Schiano ain't going to go to Ohio State. Now, if I were Ohio State, if I were the AD of Ohio State, the first call I would make is PJ Fleck. I think Fleck's at Minnesota right now. Fleck can go to Ohio State. He can recruit like crazy. He can be elite. Now, the thing about PJ is he always loves the underdog programs, so he's not going to go. Then you look at Matt Campbell of Iowa State. He's building something at Iowa State, but he was a coach, I think, at Akron or Toledo. I expect him to probably be the next head coach. He's an elite level coach, a really solid guy. He'll run a tight program, a really good guy, and he's a really good football coach. Great defense. Matt Campbell's a freaking beast, and he's probably going to be the next coach at Ohio State. You look at Petrino and Lane Kiffin. Petrino's certainly not. With his past, he's not going to get the Ohio State job, even though he can coach offense. Lane Kiffin, a little bit of a shady past. He hasn't done anything as bad as Bobby Petrino did at Arkansas with the mistress and cheating on his wife and everything, or cheating on the athletic department girl. But Lane Kiffin has a shady past. He's not going to go to Ohio State either. He's too big of a risk. So you have Matt Campbell, who I think is a really good option. And then you look at Chad Morris, you look at Justin Fuente. So Justin Fuente would be another guy that I think is going to get a lot of play at Ohio State. That would be a hell of a hire. Justin Fuente from Virginia Tech. You look at Joe Craddock, who's an offensive coordinator at Arkansas, who's going to be big time. There's a couple of coordinators that are probably going to establish themselves pretty good. Matt Rule, maybe. Look to get him from Baylor before he makes Baylor into a powerhouse. So there's a lot of different circumstances and scenarios that is going to be involved. Ohio State's still an incredible program, but for now, Michigan takes a huge step up. Jimmy Harbaugh now at Michigan, he's getting a huge pump up. Minnesota with PJ and Nebraska. Ohio State might take a little bit of a dip now. There's going to be players leaving their program. Urban Meyer's in a lot of trouble. He definitely knew about the issue that was going on for sure. I really do believe that he knew deep down. There's no way, because he micromanages all these players. So bottom line is that Urban, he didn't do the sexual assault. He didn't assault his own wife. He wasn't the person doing it. But the fact is he knew about it, and as a head coach, he kept somebody there for 7-8 years. Then you look at the type of kids that he got at Florida. He had Aaron Hernandez on that squad. He had, I know that he had like Riley Cooper. He just had a lot of guys that honestly got arrested at Florida. I was young at the time in 2008, 2009, but you look at the way that those players got arrested at Florida, and that's what Urban was about. Urban was about winning kind of at all costs. And a lot of the dudes at Florida during that time were troubled people, troubled players, and he would take in those talent. He takes talent over everything. So Urban Meyer, his legacy, now that he's going to get fired, I believe Meyer is going to be out of coaching for 2 to 3 years. He's not going to be Art Briles because he didn't have his own players doing this types of stuff. He's going to get hired in 2 more years, and he might even be a powerful coach again in like 2 to 3 more years. Urban Meyer's legacy, I'd still think that in terms of college football, he is probably a top 10 coach of all time. And other than Nick Saban, he is probably one of the best coaches in college football. So anyway, thanks, and I'm headed out, so I'll see you guys tonight.